Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. We're taking a look here today at Tezos, which is XTZ, and it's a very fascinating coin. Something I've kind of looked at intermittently throughout the months, and it's making some moves here today. So thank you to my patrons for recommending that I cover this here. Really do appreciate that. That's half the reason why I make these videos, is to help ensure that we're all profitable. So thanks again for your support. Now, moving forward, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should do your own research and ensure that you learn as much as you can from as many people as possible. And what I mean by that is just, develop your own style. Don't take everything you learn here today and use it because it works well for me. I have an 80% success rate because I've been in the industry for over 15 years, or very close to 15, and I can tell you that it's been a tumultuous experience, but I've learned how to ground myself and become much more of a patient, effective trader. So if that's something that might interest you, feel free to reference my Patreon account. I do have a link in the description below for that. Whereas I basically share all my trades with my community members. I send out signals to ensure that you are basically abreast on everything that I'm doing. I provide entry targets, sell targets, and of course, best practice as well to make sure that you can be profitable like me, right? So check that out in your own time, of course. Definitely no requirement. What you should do, though, however, what should be a requirement is jump into my Telegram community. There's no cost for that. It's just a good group of folks you can kind of learn a lot from. A link in the description below. A lot of good stuff down there as well. All the social media stuff. So just check that out in your own time. And without further ado, enough rambling from me. Let's just go ahead and get right to the charts. Let's check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look here at XTZ, which is Tezos. And just before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first. So if you're new to the channel, we'll just get a quick baseline of the 4-hour chart, understand what's going on there, and obviously move on. We look at Bitcoin because obviously it's the largest, only coin in the industry that really has the most ability to shift the tide, so to speak, as well as the fact that Ethereum, a lot of things are in the ERC20 blockchain, so we look at that as well. But any good trader will look at all the angles before they make a decision, because a well-informed decision is a sound decision. You're no longer gambling. You're essentially, making an informed investment, right? So that's the whole point of checking that out. Now, before we do that, I would like to preface as well the fact that we utilize TradingView.com desktop application. That's what I use personally, day in and day out. I use the paid versions because they are better for obvious reasons. You get more than 2 indicators present at any given time. Therefore, I highly recommend utilizing that. Link in the description below too for a free month. See if you like it. Of course, there's no obligation there, but it just kind of gives you a feel for it. And if you like it, obviously recommend utilizing it, because if you're going to be doing something like this more consistently, it helps to have more than 2 indicators present at any given time. I use probably 8 to 10 indicators overall between 4 or 5 different time frames. So just something to bear in mind. Now, first of all, this is the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin, and you'll see this ascending channel that I have drawn out here. So far, it's honoring it. So far, so good. As we can kind of see right now at this point, let's go ahead and get a little closer. You can kind of see that the price, even though it's tested in the past, it bounces up, and we saw that here today as well. The 50-day simple moving average is effectively saving us here in the sense where we can actually see that the price bounced off of that in an 8-hour time frame there. It tested it, rejected, and bounced off. Price went back up, and now we're kind of trending between 49,000 and 48,600. But there seems to be a pretty strong support level about 48.6. So every time the price comes down, it bounces off of that and it keeps going back up. So I think it's pretty safe to say we're gonna start seeing some higher highs consistently here, and the price should continue to move upwards to test 50,000 here in the near future. So just based on everything here I see so far, we've got a pretty good big picture. And if you look at this here as well, we're soon to see a convergence on the MACD. If that does cross in upward fashion, really awesome sign for a long position. So hopefully you have an open Bitcoin position at under 48,600, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at there. Now let's look at Ethereum here. Similar situation for Ethereum as well, only different support and resistance levels. So just note that we have a major resistance now at about 3250, so 3,250, and of course the support at 2,900. So it's working itself into this channel, of course, but it's on the upper side, now above the 50-day simple moving average. So likely we'll see a breakout upward here soon once Bitcoin, stays in the 49 to 50,000 range for a little bit longer. Ethereum will start to kind of jump up here, because a lot of people, when Bitcoin's doing poorly, Ethereum is typically the coin that people migrate to. When Bitcoin's doing well, it takes a little bit. There's like a bit of a lag for people to jump over to Ethereum because they're invested in Bitcoin. Again, that's not 100%, but that's just the general concept of how that works. Moving on to XTZ here, let's go ahead and take a look at Tezos. Let's look at the one-day chart first. And I see something pretty obvious and glaring right now that I don't know if you can see right here right away, but we've obviously bounced off of a resistance level here, roughly at about $5.36. So let's just go ahead and mark that. That seems like a pretty obvious resistance because that was a previous all-time high a while ago, of course, but back in February it peaked out right there. So it's obviously going to be a resistance here soon. And we'll see what happens. We've got 2 hours left in this trading cycle, so there is a chance that this one-day chart could continue to progress upwards and close above that. But it's also more likely that we're going to see this this candle close below, just basically reiterating the fact that it is considered a resistance level, and we need to honor that. So yeah, we're looking pretty good all in all. Fairly open range here. Let's take a quick look at its average true range before Bitcoin sold off, because I think it's important to understand. When Bitcoin was at 50 to 60,000 or 50 to 64,000, how was this coin performing? Because that would kind of forecast what it's going to do moving forward. Possibly, but at least usually very close, right? For the most part, I've noticed that how well coins do when Bitcoin was at its best is how well they're going to do here moving forward, because they're almost back in that channel. Because we're at we're at 49,000, right? So if we look back here and how Tezos was doing back in just say March to April, it was somewhere in the range of $4 approximately, upwards of $7.15. So 4 to 7, split the difference. 5.5 is about the average true range for Tezos when Bitcoin was hovering between 50 and 64,000. So as you can see here, April 17th, price dropped significantly. That's a very standard retracement for most coins. And then, of course, there's also the strong ramp back up. That also happened a lot for a lot of altcoins as well. A lot of us thought hey, it's altcoin season, Bitcoin's dying off, people are flooding into the altcoins. That did happen for a short while until May 19th happened, which of course is this guy here. It's pretty easy, you can pick it out of a hat. That's essentially the China candle, or for lack of better terms, that's what happened when Bitcoin was no longer allowed in China, in the banking industry. Everything just went south from there. So that being said, 5.5 is approximately average true range for Tezos. Therefore, we're getting close. So that being said, not saying that Tezos is overextended by any means, because it has definite potential to be much higher. But bear in mind also that right around here, Tezos was between $6 and $7. Bitcoin was at about 64,000. All right, so just keep that relativity in mind, because those are very helpful to understand where you're at and room for growth. XTZ. Tezos could very well shoot past its previous all-time high of approximately $7.50 or $8 approximately, and it could take off. It can continue to go past there. It could be the new ADA, right? That just keeps on going, keeps on keeping on, regardless of what happened in the past. But I just like to kind of set that foundation so you know that we're kind of trending close to what its average range was when Bitcoin was at a higher value. We've got 200-day simple moving average working as a support. Same with the 50 as well. Those are pretty much not really all that relevant at this point, considering the price is about 20% higher. We did have a convergence here on the 18th. Let's go ahead and just quickly mark that. It's a rough approximate, but I like to mark that sometimes to kind of see correlation between other convergences on the the MACD, but also the Ishimoku cloud. See what the correlation is. And looking here at this, of course, we did have a convergence recently. Obviously, that's when the price ramped up. That was at 1 a.m. on the 25th. That was here today. Let's go to the 1 a.m. and take a quick look at that. So right here, that's the one I like to focus on the most. So if you're new to the channel, I'm really big on MACD convergence on the 4-hour chart, as well as a 1-hour crossover on the cloud, obviously to the upside on the again the 1-hour chart, right? So for the Ishimoku cloud 1-hour chart and the MACD on the 4-hour. That's what I like to market there. So right there we had a signal essentially in that 4-hour time frame to buy. Now unfortunately I was asleep at that time, but had I set up an indicator, that could have notified me and letting me know, hey, wake up, it's time to take investment and jump on in. Because had I done so, I would be up a good 20, there you go, right around 20% right to this point now, even before it went up to test its previous all-time high. So just something to understand. It's a really strong indication of a buy signal, because the bears are losing momentum and the bulls are taking full control, so to speak, when you have a convergence. And what a convergence is just basically it's an upswing. When you see the 12 intersect with the 26, these are EMA lines. The 12 is a faster moving line. When it intersects upwards, it's basically essentially telling us that the bears are conceding and the bulls are taking control. So that's kind of where we're at now. With the RSI, we're up over 70, no surprise there. We do still have room for growth, but keep in mind RSI at 70 has been a pretty strong resistance for XTZ up until now. And also keep in mind the resistance level at about 535 approximately. That is also going to, kind of work or keep the price down, so to speak, here in the near future. It did pump hard to try that. That was when Bitcoin was running here recently, because Bitcoin did just go on a little bit of a quick ramp up a couple of hours ago. So there's a good chance that kind of pumped it up as well. But yeah, at this point, I would say that we might expect to see some sideways action for a little while. But let's take a look at some smaller time frames to kind of see what's going on here. So in the last 2 hours, we had a pretty strong sell-off once we hit the 535. Price is down to $5.05 right now. Let's take a look at the cloud and see kind of where we're at there. Oh, I love when this happens. Take a look at this. I like to kind of identify this because there's two things I marked, right? I marked the 1D, sorry, the 1D, you could say 1D, right? It's the 1-day chart. I marked the convergence on the MACD, right? That was roughly this line here. Now that's hard to identify, but you can still see that in this line here, the price, when it broke above the cloud, that essentially gave us a buy signal to go long. Because if you're new to the channel or just new to the Ishimoku cloud in general, it's a very helpful tool to help you understand if you're above the cloud, it's a buy signal. If you're below, it's a sell signal. Within the cloud is a no buy signal, right? You essentially just leave it alone and see which way it commits. Now, obviously, if you see right here, it was working its way through the cloud, but right at the exact same time, the 4-hour chart told us that we have a MACD convergence, or at least plus or minus a couple of hours. We had the price break above the Ishimoku cloud, not, I would say maybe approximately an hour or two later, and it broke above and it went on a ramp here. So it jumped up approximately 20% as soon as it broke above the cloud. All right, so it took about 7 or 8 hours to go ahead and finalize, but that is essentially what happened. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's always something to look for. Also note too, we got TD sequential here overextended. And this is a very helpful tool as well. So if you're not familiar with TD sequential, what it does, it really helps you understand when a currency, even a stocks as well, of course, it works pretty much in all trading, when it's considered to be overextended. In other words, you can use the RSI, of course, over 70, that's overextended, but this is a little more finite, a little more specific, because it takes the 4th previous candlestick, and if it's lower than the current candlestick, it's going to keep counting up, right? So as you can see here, this one, this candlestick number 4 was higher than the one previous, etc. It keeps counting. And when it counts up to a 9, that typically tells us that we've reached a state of exhaustion and there's going to be a reversal. Now, coincidentally, there was a strong resistance level here too. It didn't allow the price to continue upwards, which a lot of bull runs will continue past a 9. But in this example here, just keep in mind, we're at a 9, we hit a resistance, and it's retracing back down. So we have approximately, I would say, somewhere in the range of about 4 to, well, actually, since there's already 2 candlesticks up there, let's say a 7 hours worth of consolidation or retracement for Tezos, okay? So it could very well try again and reject. There's a chance of that, but there's a more stronger likelihood with the fact that the price went up 20% in only about 8 to 10 hours that we're going to see some sideways action and or retracement, and it too will eventually test that level again. Now what we want to mark here, of course, is the most recent high, which is this guy right here, and then use that as a support level because that's going to be one. Another thing too is we can go ahead and pull out the Fibonacci retracement tool and just quickly identify what the lowest point here recently, where these support and resistance levels are going to be. Okay. So there's a strong chance right here is going to be the next major support level, so let's go ahead and mark that. And if you don't know what I just did here, I just utilized the Fibonacci retracement tool. It essentially tells us, what the industry leaders are utilizing as support and resistance levels when there's a large increase. Because when you don't, just say you broke an all-time high and you're kind of in uncharted territory, or in this case, it hasn't been this high in so long, we need to kind of understand what that looks like. So this obviously pointed out to us that we have this point right here where there was resistance, support, that is essentially going to be a support level moving forward. So right at approximately 485, we're going to expect to see the price bounce, likely back to the upside, and or just see it consolidate sideways until we reach that state of exhaustion and the price can continue back upwards. All right? That's generally what I like to look for. Okay, so I just marked that, and I also marked this here too because the price rejected about 4 hours in a row at this level previously. So we do lose the resistance, correction, the support of 484 or 485. We'll see the price potentially retrace back down to basically 440, and then bounce back up again. I think the likelihood of that is pretty low considering the fact that Bitcoin is back at the 49,000 range and it's likely trending towards 50. If we can see 50 broken here in the next 24 to 48 hours, none of this will really matter. It'll probably bounce off 485 and progress upwards to break the previous all-time high of 535, most recent high, of course. Okay, so just something to understand. I feel like it's going to stay on the channel of 45 upwards of 535. All right, so that's kind of what we look at there. Let's quickly take a peek at the 15-minute chart and just see kind of where we're at here as well. Does look like we're losing EMA at the moment. It's not for sure because this candlestick hasn't closed, but we've got literally 2 minutes until it does. So if you're unfamiliar with the EMA lines, it's the exponential moving average. The EMA 15 is what I use on the 15-minute chart. It's easy to remember, right? 15 on the 15. I use that because it just kind of blends the average of the 9 and the 20, which are two consistent EMA lines that are utilized. I just like less noise on my chart, therefore I use just one EMA line. That being said, when the price is above the EMA line, as you can see here, it's considered a bullish trend, and when it breaks below, it's considered bearish. So there's a chance we might be losing EMA, and the price will continue to regress and retrace down to about 485 to test the next major support level. We are well above VWAP. But honestly, the standard deviation came so high that there's a reason for that. If you're unfamiliar with VWAP, it's a volume weighted average price, first of all. And the VWAP line basically works as a support and resistance level. So when the price is above, it's a support. When it's below, it's a resistance. But when it gets too far away from that line, it basically, the price has to come back down. There's a standard deviation line that you don't see here that's also used in the VWAP. And that basically helps you understand when the price is overextended outside or within the VWAP. When it goes too far, it's usually about an average of 10%, it'll start to come back down. Or up if it's on the downswing, right? So if we take a look here, I guarantee this is going to be over 10%. Look at that. At its highest point, we're at about 18% from the VWAP all the way to the top of the price action. There's no wonder why the price is going to come back down because it was overextended for too long, right? So that's kind of that whole scenario as well. So that's why I like to look at EMA and VWAP. Not only does it help you understand good entry points, because you want to look for an entry point when the price is above both, you also want to use it to understand how far or overextended a currency is. And when we got a major resistance level plus a VWAP of 18.5%, that would have been a firm indication of a sell signal right there. As soon as it started to reject off of that, I probably would have considered selling right in this time frame here, just based on the fact that it was extremely overextended, right? So those are just things that I like to look for. And just to bear in mind too, I didn't explain this, I apologize. The VWAP, what it is, it takes the volume of the last 24 hours and expresses it as a price. You also need to understand that in cryptocurrency, it's not designed for cryptocurrency traditionally, whereas it will reset every 24 hours. So at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, here in about an hour and a half, we'll see this blue line jump up and meet the price action and then start resetting and essentially figuring itself out again. You can see that happened here. It catches up, basically resets that standard deviation to ensure that when it's moving forward the next 24-hour cycle, we get some type of indication of support and resistance levels. But when it gets too far and overextended like this, it will come back down. Okay, it's that whole theory of what goes up must come down. There's a gravitivity, if that's even a word, to cryptocurrency. More so crypto than any other trading, really, but you will see this in trading as well. It's just less frequent because there's not as much hype, not as many spikes, if you will. Pump and dumps are a little less common in traditional trading, but VWAP is very important. I recommend using it. Just know it's only valid on 15-minute chart or lower. It still works on 1 or 5-minute charts too, but anything larger than that is really just not all that effective. Because again, it resets every 24 hours. Keep that in mind. So here's what I'm thinking. Big picture on this guy here. Tezos has absolute potential to exceed its previous all-time high. And I'm referring to all-time high, sorry, first all-time high, right? That first support and resistance level of approximately 535. So 535 will be broken as soon as Bitcoin surpasses 50,000 or gets closer to 50,000. It just keeps, if it keeps making smaller legs up to 50,000, and then just say it closes above 50,000, we're going to be in really good shape to see it Tezos take off. But more importantly, until that happens, we're going to see this resistance level of what it was, 535, possibly be tested again. And if the price continues to come down and retrace, we will likely see a support level of $4.85. So my recommendation for you, if you have an open position right now, instead of getting greedy, perhaps consider taking some profits. It's okay to be greedy in this sense, don't get me wrong, because there's more room for potential. However, recommend setting a stop loss just under support. So this support level at 485 is fairly strong. I would say 480 or 470 as a potential stop loss, so you can still take your profits. Heaven forbid you get stopped out. If it stops out and jumps back up again, you can always get back in. Just recommend always at least moving your stop loss up to the next closest support level, just below. That's usually how I do it myself. Like when I trade Bitcoin, for example, I'll go down 2 major support levels. I'll do like a range of 3,000 on in most cases, even though there's a strong chance, or sorry, there's a chance I could lose just say 10%. The likelihood is pretty low considering I'm usually working with 2 or 3 major support levels. And support levels are probably the most important fundamental things you can utilize in trading. Therefore, I recommend, you maybe do some research on Fibonacci retracement, kind of get an idea of what that looks like, because that's what industry leaders, those who are controlling the market, they control that and they use those consistently. I have an eyeball for it after a while because honestly, like, when you've been in trading for 15 years, you kind of see patterns, you understand what to expect. So support and resistance levels just kind of come naturally to me, but Fibonacci retracement tool might be recommended for you at first. And in that sense, you really just take the most recent low and the current high, and you kind of go from bottom to top, and it kind of helps plot out support and resistance levels for you. So that's pretty much all I got here. Yeah, so my prediction for Tezos is that it will do very well, minus the next few days. It's going to probably bounce off some support levels, work on this channel perhaps. Once Bitcoin surpasses 50,000, we're going to see a break to the upside here at 535, and then on to the next major resistance, whatever that might be. In fact, let's see if we can mark that here. See if we can kind of identify. You can see this spot's been hit a few times. 575 is a likely channel as well. So I'll just go ahead and put this over here, just so we can kind of see where it goes next time I cover it. So that's a major resistance level, and from there, of course, it gets kind of steep, if you will. I would say we'll just worry about that here for the moment. So just pay attention to how the price responds to 535, and obviously hoping that 485 also works as a consistent support level here moving forward. Okay. All right, so there you have it. I hope that works out well for you. If you like what you see here today, consider joining my Patreon account. I actually share all of my trades with my community members, and I utilize this form of trading every time I trade. Okay, so I send out usually 3 to 5 signals per week. Those are day trades, swing trades, and hodl trades, just to ensure we all stay profitable. I average about an 80% success rate, so check that out in your own time. Also reference my Telegram community if you haven't already. Really good group of folks there. You can learn a lot. So jump right in. Let's have some fun. Feel free to message me if you like. Once again, hope you have a good rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.